people. Countries including the United States, Britain and the United Arab Emirates have already begun rolling out immunization programs. The World Health Organization in Europe warned today of a further resurgence of COVID-19 early next year as it urged families to wear face masks during this year's Christmas gatherings. As a growing number of coronavirus vaccines advance through clinical trials, the wealthy countries are fueling an extraordinary gap in access around the world, laying claim to more than half the doses that could come on the market by the end of next year. The United States has secured 100 million doses from Pfizer with the option of buying 500 million more and 200 million from Moderna with the additional 300 million on offer. A Food and Drug Administration review released concluded that Moderna's coronavirus vaccine was highly effective at preventing COVID-19 symptoms after trial participants received a second dose. The endorsement put Moderna's vaccine candidate on track to be the second to be the authorized one for emergency use, and approval is expected on Friday. The first home test for COVID-19 that doesn't require prescription will soon be on U.S. store shelves also. Even as more than 300,000 people in the U.S. have succumbed to COVID-19 virus this year, death has taken a relative holiday in the nation's execution chambers due to the pandemic-related shutdowns. The Death Penalty Information Center's annual report released this morning counts 17 executions nationwide this year, with no more scheduled until early next month. A bipartisan quartet of congressional leaders is pushing hard and in tandem for a long-delayed COVID-19 relief package, hoping to seal an agreement as early as today that would extend aid to individuals and businesses and help ship coronavirus vaccines to millions. President-elect Joe Biden plans to formally introduce former rival Pete Buttigieg as his pick for U.S. Secretary of Transportation, adding to what is shaping up to be the most diverse cabinet in U.S. history. And President-elect Joe Biden is poised to tap former Michigan Governor Jennifer Granholm to lead the Department of Energy. President-elect Joe Biden and Vice President-elect Kamala Harris will take their oaths of office outside the U.S. Capitol building as inauguration planners seek to craft an event that captures the traditional grandeur of the historic ceremony while complying with COVID-19 protocols. Several senior Republican U.S. senators acknowledged Democrat Joe Biden as the country's president-elect after the Electoral College affirmed his victory and rejected the idea of overturning the 2020 presidential election in Congress. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, for the first time, acknowledged Joe Biden's victory and referred to him as president-elect 6 weeks after Election Day. President Trump is being urged by some advisers not to go ahead with his plan to veto a major defense bill because it is all but certain to be overridden by the U.S. Congress. And the biggest East Coast winter storm in years is expected to dump up to 2 feet of snow on parts of the mid-Atlantic and northeast today and tomorrow. Forecasters say the blockbuster storm could shut down travel in some areas. It also is expected to worsen shipping delays at the peak of this year's unprecedented online shopping and force schools to close. Iran's supreme leader and the country's president both warned America and the departure of President Trump does not immediately mean better relations between the two nations. The supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, held his first public function today since rumors surfaced of his deteriorating health. Assassins killed the deputy governor of the Afghan capital by putting a magnetic bomb on his armored car as he drove to work. Mehbubullah Mohebi was killed alongside his secretary in the latest in a wave of killings targeting politicians, civil servants, journalists and activists. Somalia cut diplomatic relations with neighboring Kenya, accusing it of meddling in politics as protests and gunfire erupted in the capital of Mogadishu over delayed elections. About 2.3 million children in Ethiopia's northern Tigray region are cut off from humanitarian assistance as violence continues, according to a warning from the United Nations. President Tayyip Erdogan told European Council President Charles Michel in a call that Turkey wants to build its future with the European Union, calling for Ankara and the bloc to move on from a vicious cycle in ties. Turkey's parliament showed rare near unity in condemning U.S. sanctions over its procurement of Russian defense systems and said the country will not hesitate to protect itself in the face of threats. The American presence in Polish soil plays a key role in safeguarding the West against the Kremlin's hostilities. The level of aggression of Russian propaganda demonstrates that keeping the eastern flank strong is a necessity for NATO as a whole. Saudi Arabia sought to deploy a 10-man security team with diplomatic immunity to Norway in an attempt to target a critic of Mohammed bin Salman, the kingdom's crown prince. And the European Union is to bring forward its meeting to approve the coronavirus vaccine to next week amid public anger in Germany over the delay. Germany entered a strict lockdown today in an effort to get soaring coronavirus cases under control as the number of registered deaths from COVID-19 jumped by 952, the highest daily increase yet. Chancellor Angela Merkel warning that Germany faces a new peak of COVID-19 infections next month, raising doubts that the country's hard lockdown will end in early January as initially planned. Portugal will have enough coronavirus jabs to inoculate the whole population, with the distribution of the vaccines kicking off as soon as they arrive in the country, hopefully before the end of the year. And St. Petersburg is running out of hospital beds for COVID-19 patients as one of around half a dozen firms licensed to produce Russia's Sputnik vaccine began deliveries across the country. You're listening to the World News on Radio Caravan, and after weeks of relentless pessimism, the European Union said that there was now a clear, if narrow, path to reaching an agreement with the UK on a post-Brexit trade deal that should avoid costly chaos on the borders at the end of the year. The European Union's chief executive said she could not say if there would be a trade deal with Britain, but there had been progress, and the next few days would be critical. MPs have been primed to vote for a possible Brexit trade deal in London at the beginning of next week as hopes rise of a breakthrough in Brussels. And Britain's top court gave the go-ahead to the expansion of the Heathrow Airport today, allowing the £14 billion plan to proceed after decades of legal battles and political wrangling. Officials from Japan's space agency have said they have found more than the anticipated amount of soil and gases inside a small capsule, the country's Hayabusa 2 spacecraft, that have brought back from this distant asteroid this month, a mission they praised as a milestone in planetary research. Nepal Prime Minister KP Sharma Oli and the ruling party's rival faction led by Pushpa Kumar Dohal appears headed for a showdown this week over the possible appointment of former Home Secretary Prem Kumar Rai as the next chief of the Himalayan nation's top anti-graft watchdog. China is forcing hundreds of thousands of Uyghurs and other minorities to pick cotton by hand in the western region of Xinjiang. Rights activists have estimated that Chinese authorities have detained more than 1 million Uyghurs and other mostly Muslim minorities in detention camps in Xinjiang since 2017. Beijing denies that Uyghurs' rights are abused and says re-education centers provide vocational training to help people gain employment and are necessary to curb extremism. Eastern Army Commander Lieutenant General Anil Chauhan said that the mutual trust between the Indian Army and the Chinese PLA has evaporated post the Galwan clash. The top commander also said that the Indian Army is fully prepared to take on any situation that may arise at the border. Amid the ongoing farmers' protest, the Union Cabinet today met and took decisions related to agriculture, telecom and power sectors. And, of course, the farmers have rejected the government's proposed amendments to the new agri laws. And the protests continue in Tikri. Dhansa borders closed for any traffic movement this morning. The Supreme Court told the government that it intends to set up a committee comprising representatives of farmers' unions across India, government and other stakeholders to resolve this issue and posted the matter for tomorrow. Union Minister Hardeep Singh Puri has appealed to the protesting farmers to resume talks with the central government to discuss their genuine demands, saying this is not the time to remain adamant. He was addressing a virtual Kisan Sammelan, asserted that the Narendra Modi-led government was taking several steps in the interest of the farming community. India's COVID-19 caseload rose to 99.32 lakhs, with over 26,000 infections being reported in a day. But the cases and deaths are declining in India, which is very reassuring. The Union Health Ministry has said that India is doing relatively well in its fight against COVID-19 pandemic, besides speaking about the way forward, and that's the vaccines. And 29,000 cold chain points, 240 walk-in coolers, 70 walk-in freezers, 45,000 ice-lined refrigerators, 41,000 deep freezers, and 300 solar refrigerators will be used for this purpose. India would need to augment its cold chain equipment of different types required to handle vaccines by 5.2 million to 11 million. 24 police stations would be set up for security and crowd management in Haridwar for the Mahakumbh 2021. With just a fortnight left for the fair to start, these police stations will have the responsibility of maintaining policing, law, order, traffic, crowd management and patrolling the Mela zone. Prime Minister Modi will be the chief guest at the centenary celebrations of the Aligarh Muslim University via video link on the 22nd of this month. He will attend the online function along with Union Education Minister. And it is India announcing their playing 11 for the historic first ever pink ball test match against Australia. This stage is set for this epic encounter in Adelaide when Virat Kohli's men take on the Australia cricket team, the only pink ball affair of the four-match test series. The rescheduled Women's 50-over World Cup in New Zealand will start on the 4th of March next year, with the final to be held on the 3rd of April. This was announced by the International Cricket Council. And Pakistan skipper Babar Azam and left-handed opener Shan Masood were named in the Wisden's Test team of the year 2020, as they picked out the best performers from the last